Hello, this is Basar. In this one, I will show how do I do the debugging in a web client. There is no really a common structured approach for the debugging. It is shaped based on the technologies you are using, and as you practice more, you develop your own habit. Now I will show the debugging on a React project. And first, let's see how it is working. So we have this sign up form, and we have the fields username, email, and password, and let's see what happens if we send a sign up request. At the moment the fields are empty, and here the backend is responding with the validation errors. And if we fill these fields with the corresponding values and we send a sign up, here we are seeing the message saying please check your email for account activation. And let's try this one more time. As you can see, when we click the button, there is also this progress indicator, and this is for telling the user that there is an ongoing process in the background, so user will wait until that action is completed. So this is how the application is working. You can get the project from this repository. There are 2 branches. If you want to try yourself, clone this repo and just switch to the typo-begin branch and try to fix the issues yourself. So if you want, stop at this point of the video and practice yourself. Then you can come back and watch how I debug the issues. Now let's fix the issues. As you can see, I'm switched to typo-begin branch, and at the moment we have the failures. Just going step by step by filling the form, just sending a request having the user only. So when I send the request, the first thing I noticed was this progress indicator was missing. And the second thing is, like, we just filled this username, but we are receiving this username required. So to debug this thing, what I would do is just go and open the developer tools and switch to the network tab. Now just clearing this thing to have a clean slate and sending the request once again. Now we send this request, and as a result we receive the error saying these fields are required. And since the backend is rejecting the request saying the username is required, then we must be focusing what we are sending, and we can check the payload we are sending in this tab. And here we can see we only have this email and password, and we don't have the username in it. We typed values into this one, but it's missing there. So the Chrome Developers Tools Network tab can help us to identify what is the outgoing request from the client. So when backend reject the request, first thing we need to look is the outgoing request from the client. And we must be making sure it is containing all the relevant data in it. And at the moment we can see we have missing data. There is no username in this request. And the next thing I would use is the React Developer Tools. So I just switch to the components, and here we have the hierarchy like this. We have the app, we have the sign up, and there are inputs, and we have this button with progress. Now in sign up component we have the state for the fields for the username, email, and password, and here we are seeing the error is stored in the state as well. And before checking the code, we can test it like this. I'm just reloading the page. Now we have these state fields, and if I type anything here I see this is updated as undefined. Now let's go to the code and let's see how it is working. Now this is the sign up page, and we have the state for the username, email, password, and if we check the inputs, corresponding inputs right here, this is for the username input. And when we are calling the username, we call the setUsername function to update its state. We are calling it with the event target value, and we have a typo here. We are not passing the value of this input component correctly, and since this is an unknown field, it's undefined, therefore the username is updated with undefined. So I'm just fixing this part and saving it and reloading this one, opening the console once again. Now if I type anything here, here we can see the state is updated properly. So this first state hook is containing the username. Now let's send this request. Let's make sure we are not going to receive username required error back. So this is fixing. Now we are going to send our next request, and let's make sure we focus to the network tab once again. So this time I'm just going to fill the, other than the username, I'm just going to fill the email as well. So user1@mail.com and sending the request. Now we have another failure here, and this one is saying the username cannot contain @. Now when we check the request here in the outgoing request payload, here we are seeing the username is having the value of user1@mail.com. So we are passing the value in the email field as a username value to backend, and actually the email is empty. So we are receiving email is required for this part because email is empty, the backend is rejecting, but also we are receiving this error, username cannot contain @ from backend, because we are incorrectly sending the user's email value as a username. So if we check the components once again, we also see the same output here. As you remember, the first state is for the username, and whenever we type anything here like user1, and if we type this, it updates this state. But if we type anything here, this is also updating this state. So let's check the code. Now this is for the email input, and we have this thing. We are calling set username when we are changing the email input, and these can happen. These kind of typing errors can happen when you just copy and paste the repeating components, like you just copy input for username and update it for the email and change it to email, and sometimes you just forget the things there, and that ends up with the unexpected behavior. So like in this one, instead of calling set email, we called set username, and that caused the issue. Now saving this one as well, and let's try it again. Going back to network. Now clearing this one, reloading the application, clearing the output. This is user1 @mail.com, and password. The password part is not important at this point, just hitting the enter. Now we send the request, and it contains the user's email, user's password, and the username. And as a result, we are receiving this 200 OK. So the response is saying basically, let's go to the preview. Now in this response, we see the message, and it says, please check your email for account activation. But in client, we don't see that message. It's not showing up. And for this one, we can check the components here. We have another state fields right here, but also we should always be keeping eye on the console log as well. Here we also have this error saying cannot read properties of undefined. So this is a common error you see in the JavaScript projects, and I'd like to show this one on another sample. So I have this junk.js right here. I just want to show how that error is triggered. So I'm going to use an extension for this one. You can install it as well. It's Quokka, and we can run the Quokka on this file. Quokka is basically running the file, and it automatically runs the code changes as you type. So like in this one, we have this error object, we have the response in it, and there's data, and there's validation errors, and there's this username. So this is just an object having nested objects in it. And when we try to console log this one, here in the output, we got this message. This is the output. So it is just printing out this thing. But if we have a typo, let's say, we say this is not the validation errors, or we can do the same thing here as well. If we try to just print out the data validation error username, then we have this error saying cannot read properties of undefined, and it's trying to read the username. So basically this message is saying this is trying to access to the username, but the object is undefined. So this validation error is not known. It's an undefined object. So I cannot read the properties of this undefined object. So I cannot read the username property of this undefined object. Or we could see error like this. So if we have like undefined object here, there is no datax. So the message is saying cannot read properties of undefined, and it's trying to read the validation error. So validation errors belongs to datax, and datax is an undefined object. So this error should be interpreted as like this. So if we focus to the issue we have here, so going back to the console once again, so it is saying cannot read properties of undefined, reading data. Here in the sign up, we are receiving 200 OK, and the click events are being handled here in the submit. So we have this submit, we are sending our request to backend, and then we try to update the sign up success with this message. So this one is a bit tricky. The message we are seeing right here, it is saying cannot read properties of undefined, and it's trying to read the data. And when we check the line, it's saying the line 55. So right here, the error is being triggered here. So we are receiving 200 OK, and this 200 OK is handled within this try block. But somehow our request is being thrown into this error part, the catch part, and when we are reading that thing, we have failures. Now, instead of trying to access to the validation errors like this, we can just comment out this part and print the error here. Let's see what's the error. So again, opening the terminal, clearing the console. Let's reload the application, filling the form. And hitting enter. Now, it is saying that the error is a bit changed now. Cannot read properties of undefined, reading message. And basically, this is another error object. It's not the error object thrown by the Axios when the request is rejected with 400. It's not the error object we are looking for. This is something else. And it is saying it cannot read the message. And basically, this is being triggered right here. We are trying to read the data message, and the data part is a typo. So the ID I'm using, the VS Code, is also highlighting that, and it's saying, did you mean data? So the typo is right here. Since this DAT is unknown, it cannot read the message, therefore it's throwing an error. That error is handled within this catch, and in this catch we had another error because this error was looking for a different type of error object, which was looking for a response, and it has data and so on. So this was like hiding the actual error we are looking for. So the fix is we need to update this one. So we are going to set the sign up success with the message we are receiving from backend, and then we can just uncomment this part. Let's try this, and let's also check the components here. We have this sign up component selected, and we have the states now. Just reloading it and sending another request, user1@mail.com, password. Now as you can see, we are filling the fields for the state, the username, email, password, and we have this thing, and we can just check what this is all about by just checking the order. So the first one is username, second is email, and the fifth one is the sign up success, which is what we are trying to update after the successful sign up request. And basically it is initially empty. And let's see how it's going to be working after this one. Clicking the sign up, and here we have this is updated. Please check your email for account activation, and that message is reflected on the UI because right here we are showing conditionally the form is visible conditionally. If we don't have the sign up success message, it is showing the form, and if we have the sign up success, then we just display that message. So this part is also done. Now let's focus to the final part. We have this API progress, and we keep updating it like in the submit. Before we send the request, we update it as true. Then after the API call is completed, we update it as false. Now let's see how it is working, because it must be updating this this button to show progress indicator, but at the moment we don't. For this one, we don't need to fill the form, but the API progress is like the fourth state object, and this one initially false. Now if I click this one, here we can see it is updated as true. Then after the API call is completed, it goes back to false. So it is basically updating properly, like the state is properly updated. But when we check the button with progress, this property is being used in the button with progress component, and here we are receiving this API progress as a property. Let's see if we properly update on this part as well. Just clicking the sign up, and here it is turning true and then going back to false. So basically we receive the property. Now to understand what's going on, let's check how that component is working. Now this component is basically taking the properties, and the property for the spinner visibility is dependent on this one, API progress. And right here, this API progress is having this text like API progress with double S and the and. But when we check the sign up page, when we are passing a property to this button with progress, we are just setting the property name as API progress with single S, and that's the typo here. So we need to update this one like this. So let's save it, and let's see it here as well. Now we are receiving this API progress, and if I click the sign up, now we are seeing the progress indicator. So we fixed all the requirements. So that's how I debug the issues in the client application like the React. And you can also use similar approach in the Vue, where the similar tools like the Vue developer tools also exist, and you can use that one to make sure the states are updated properly. And also you can use again the network tab to make sure the outgoing request is containing the payload you are looking for. And in the frameworks like the Angular, it would be harder to have the typo things because the Angular is using the TypeScript, and the TypeScript is mainly forcing you to define types, and your types is being processed by the ID you are using, and it's also helping you to use the auto-completion or the IntelliSense to make sure that the correct fields are set or the correct properties are being passed to the components, and so on. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you in the next tutorials.